The antiseptic tang of the ICU clung to my clothes like an invisible stain. Machines hummed and beeped in uneasy rhythm, each sound a fragile tether holding my little boy to life. Through the glass wall, I watched the gentle rise and fall of his chest beneath a maze of wires and tubes. His lashes, so dark against his pale skin, barely fluttered. I wrapped my arms around myself, the silk of my blouse cool against skin that hadn't felt rest in days. The vending machine coffee I'd been nursing for hours had long gone cold, but I barely tasted it anyway. My phone vibrated against the metal chair, a low, insistent buzz. Another doctor's update? I snatched it up with trembling fingers. But it wasn't the hospital. It was my bank. Urgent account activity detected. Please confirm a withdrawal of $850,000. For a heartbeat, the words meant nothing. 850,000? I blinked. Certain exhaustion was making me hallucinate. Then the numbers burned into focus, each digit a blade. That was everything. Years of sacrifices, of late-night spreadsheets and early morning deals. Money meant to keep us safe. My pulse thundered. I stabbed at the screen to call the bank, adrenaline slicing through the fog of fear. When the representative calmly explained that the transfers were family-authorized, the floor seemed to tilt. Family. My own family. 3 months earlier, before the endless nights in the ICU, my life had felt, if not simple, at least steady. Saturday mornings meant pancakes and cartoons with Noah, my 7-year-old, while sunlight spilled across the tiny kitchen of our 2-bedroom townhouse. I'd built that home with my own hands, or at least with every late-night proposal I'd written for clients who thought a young single mother in marketing consulting couldn't possibly handle a 6-figure campaign. I still remember the first time my older brother, Aaron, looked around the place and gave that half-smile that was less compliment than critique. "Nice spot," he'd said, eyes flicking to the second-hand dining set. "Guess you're doing okay." Okay. That single word lodged like a pebble in my shoe. Aaron and I had never been close. He was Dad's favorite, a minor league baseball hero until his shoulder gave out, then a salesman who treated charm like currency. He always had a way of making my victories feel like lucky accidents. Our last Thanksgiving together, tension buzzed between us like a live wire. I'd brought a cranberry tart and a bottle of good Pinot. Aaron brought questions disguised as jokes. "So, Charlotte," he'd said, swirling his glass. "How's that little consulting gig? Must be nice to work from home in pajamas." I laughed lightly, though my hands tightened on the serving spoon. "It's more than pajamas," I replied. "I signed 3 national accounts this quarter." His brows lifted, surprise quickly masked by a shrug. "Good for you." Only my grandmother, Helen, caught the flicker of pride beneath my composure. Later, while we stood at the sink rinsing dishes, she pressed a small velvet pouch into my hand. "For when you need reminding," she whispered. Inside was her old silver locket, tiny forget-me-not blossoms etched on its face. She'd worn it through decades of widowhood and small-town whispers, through the years she'd raised my father alone. "Strength," she said simply. "It's in you too. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I clutched it that night while Noah slept, the cool metal warm from my palm. In that quiet, I made a private promise. Whatever storms came, I would protect what I'd built for us. I just never imagined the storm would start inside my own family. Grandma Helen's locket rested against my collarbone every morning like a quiet heartbeat, a reminder of the vow I'd made. While Noah chased plastic dinosaurs across the carpet, I chased contracts, cold calling, pitching, revising strategies long after midnight. In the early days of my marketing consultancy, my office was a chipped IKEA desk squeezed into a corner of the living room. Noah would fall asleep to the soft clatter of my keyboard. When loneliness crept in, I'd rub the locket's tiny blossoms until their grooves felt etched into my fingertips. Work wasn't just survival, it was a claim to the future I wanted for him. I learned to read people fast, who respected a single mother's hustle, and who saw a mark. Some clients underestimated me. I let them. It was almost fun watching disbelief turn to respect when results arrived. Ad campaigns that doubled their sales, strategies that landed products on national shelves. The first real break came with Marianne Cole, a seasoned brand strategist with a voice like velvet and a reputation that could fill a Manhattan boardroom. She'd attended one of my small business workshops and lingered after everyone left. "You've got something rare, Charlotte," she'd said, slipping a business card across the table. "Join my next project. Let me show you the bigger leagues." Marianne became more than a mentor. She was the proof that grit and grace could coexist. Under her wing, I learned to negotiate contracts worth more than my entire first-year revenue. By the time Noah turned 6, I'd paid off every cent of debt and quietly built an investment portfolio that grew while the rest of the world barely noticed. But I never advertised success. My social media remained a scrapbook of playground afternoons and Noah's crayon masterpieces. Family gatherings? I spoke of steady work and small wins, nothing more. It wasn't shyness, it was instinct. Aaron's half smiles, my father's gruff, "Don't get too big for your boots." All of it warned me to protect what I'd earned. Behind the scenes, my life expanded. A modern loft with floor-to-ceiling windows replaced the cramped townhouse. I filled it with small luxuries that fed my soul, a vintage record player spinning Nina Simone, a walnut writing desk where sunlight pooled like honey. Noah had a bedroom bright with planets and rockets, and a telescope that reached for stars I once thought were out of our grasp. On nights when he fell asleep beside me after a movie, I'd press the locket to my lips. It wasn't about the money. It was about proving, to myself, to the ghosts of every doubter, that our lives could be built on more than survival. I never imagined that quiet caution would become my shield, because when betrayal finally came, it would arrive not from strangers, but from those whose love I once trusted most. 2 weeks after Noah's breathing finally steadied and the machines around him softened to a less frantic rhythm, the blur of crisis gave way to something sharper: anger. The bank's fraud team had finished their investigation. The transfers hadn't been a hacker's trick. They were clean, documented, and worst of all, approved by people who shared my blood. Aaron's name was on every authorization. I set the folder of statements on the polished oak conference table in Linda Rosen's law office, the weight of it like a stone in my lap. Linda, my attorney and Marianne's longtime friend, met my gaze with the calm of someone who'd weathered more than a few family wars. "They can't hide from this," she said quietly. "Do you want them here when we serve notice?" I hesitated, feeling the locket warm against my skin. "Yes," I said at last. "They need to see exactly what they've done." That afternoon, my father, Aaron, and my sister-in-law Kara filed into the office with the practiced ease of people convinced they still held the moral high ground. Dad's shoulders hunched in his old wool coat. Aaron carried that same half-smile I'd known since childhood, equal parts charm and dare. I stayed seated, a calm I didn't quite feel settling over me like the hush before a storm. The winter light from the broad window caught the brushed steel frame of a photograph behind me, Noah, grinning, cheeks flushed from last summer's baseball game. My father's eyes flicked to it, then back to me. "I'm glad Noah's recovering," Dad said, his voice gruff. "We've all been worried. Have you?" I asked softly. Aaron leaned forward, arms resting on the table. "Look, Charlotte, this is just a misunderstanding. We borrowed the money. $850,000. I cut in, sliding the folder toward them. "Without a word. While your nephew lay in intensive care." The color drained from Kara's face. Aaron tried a laugh that landed brittle. "We planned to put it back. It was an opportunity." Linda's voice, cool and precise, sliced through his protest. "Opportunity is not a legal defense. You committed felony theft." Dad cleared his throat, eyes avoiding mine. "We thought you had so much. We didn't think you'd notice right away." The room went very still. Outside, a siren wailed faintly, then faded. I let the silence stretch until even Aaron's restless fingers stilled. "You thought my success meant you could take what I built," I said finally. "Do you know how many nights I worked while Noah slept on the couch beside me? How many times I chose client calls over dinner, or scraped by with a second-hand desk so we'd have a future?" My voice didn't rise. It sharpened. I earned every dollar. And while my son fought for his life, you chose to steal it. Aaron's smile collapsed into something small and uncertain. Kara reached for his arm, but he pulled away. Linda slid a second document across the table, court orders freezing assets and initiating criminal proceedings. Aaron's eyes widened. Dad's shoulders sagged as if a decade of weight had settled there at once. You'll each receive copies, Linda said. Unless Charlotte instructs otherwise, these proceed immediately. I closed my hand around the locket, its cool silver a steady pulse against my skin. I won't stop the legal process, I said. But whether you remain in our lives depends on choices you make from here. For the first time, none of them met my gaze. The power I'd feared I'd lost was suddenly, unmistakably mine. I waited until the papers were stacked neatly again, the sharp scent of fresh toner drifting between us like a quiet verdict. Aaron finally broke the silence, his voice low, almost pleading. Charlotte, we can fix this. Tell us what you want. I let the question hang. The locket rested against my chest, a cool weight of memory, Grandma Helen's strength threading through me. You want conditions? I said at last.
Fine.
Here they are. Aaron sat back, wary. Dad stared at the table as if the grain of the wood might offer escape. First, I began, you repay every cent you took. Not when it's convenient, now. Linda has set up an escrow account. By the end of this month, the funds go back or the court moves forward. No excuses. Aaron's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Second, I continued therapy. All of you. This kind of betrayal doesn't happen without deep rot. Family counseling, weekly sessions for at least 6 months. I'll verify it. Without proof, you stay away from me and Noah. Kara's eyes brimmed. She nodded almost imperceptibly. Third, my voice softened just slightly. You start earning trust the way I had to, by showing up, by being honest. No more half smiles that hide contempt, Aaron. No more silent judgments, Dad. If you can't speak to me with respect, don't speak at all. The room absorbed my words. Outside the window, winter light spilled pale and unwavering across the city, as if the world itself refused to dim. Aaron rubbed his temple. We didn't think it through, he said hoarsely. I thought because you had more. Because I worked for it. I cut in firm but steady. I built what you stole. I will protect it and my son, no matter what it costs. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Dad looked up, eyes damp, voice barely above a whisper. Your grandmother would be proud. Something in my chest loosened. Not forgiveness, not yet. Just the faintest easing of a wound. You have a chance, I said quietly. Don't waste it. I rose, gathering the folder, the locket cool against my skin like a seal of finality. Linda stood too, her presence a silent pillar at my side. Aaron exhaled shakily. We'll do it, he said. Kara squeezed his hand, her own trembling. I nodded once. This isn't about revenge, I told them. It's about what we become after the damage is done. And for the first time since Noah's first labored breath in the ICU, I felt something close to calm. Winter melted into the soft blush of early spring by the time the court confirmed the return of every stolen dollar. The money arrived in my account one quiet Tuesday morning. No fanfare, just numbers on a screen, like a tide finally flowing back to shore. But the true repair was slower, less measurable. Aaron and Kara kept their promise. They attended counseling, every session documented for the family therapist who sent me monthly notes of progress. Aaron's texts came tentatively at first, updates from therapy, brief apologies that grew, week by week, into something steadier. Kara wrote long emails about what she was learning, about boundaries, about the envy she never admitted until now. Dad took longer. Old habits clung to him like stubborn ivy. But one Sunday, as Noah and I strolled through the park, Dad joined us unexpectedly. He carried a paper bag of Noah's favorite cinnamon rolls and a shy, almost boyish smile. Thought we could have breakfast together, he said, eyes lowered. No grand apology, just presence. It was enough for that morning. At night, when Noah finally slept, I often sat by the window of our loft, the city lights scattering like stars below. I held Grandma Helen's locket in my palm, the tiny forget-me-nots catching the glow. Her quiet faith in me had outlasted every betrayal. I thought of the nights when fear was my only companion, when Noah's life balanced on beeping machines, when my own family turned my trust into currency. I had faced both storms and walked through them intact. Noah stirred in his sleep and sighed, the sound like a soft promise of tomorrow. I fastened the locket around my neck and whispered into the quiet, the words tasting of resolve and grace. They thought my fear would silence me. Instead, it made me unstoppable.